Okie dokie. Typical. I'm right by the hedge, and it was such a quiet early afternoon, and now we've got the noise. It's like when I hit record, it seems like there's a green flag that goes up that says Nina is recording, she's filming, let's make some noise. We are going to counteract that with some noise of our own. Welcome to the patio. I hope that you are having a great day, morning, evening, whatever time of day it is where you are at. And I hope that you can hear me because I just babbled off an entire intro. Got to make sure that my cables are all put away. Can't have a trip and fall. Okay, then I'm going to find you on, if you're here. I know that Orchid Ninja Samurai Julie-san is here on the patio. Should be sleeping. Girl. Girl, girl, girl. Hey! Linda is on the patio as well. So good to see you. I hope that you saw my reply. I had a nagging feeling there was something, maybe something coming from you, and I got to reply to it sooner rather than later in the hopes that if you couldn't make it to the stream, at least you had an answer. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, but I have a perfect candidate for you, which if you want to, we can jump right in. I do have some bleach water to wash my hands in. Here, yeah, over there. Okay, so I don't want to waste your time. Maybe we can start with that. Bleach water to wash my hands. That will have to tell you everything you already need to know. We're going to address a Fusarium orchid. Why not get that out of the way? I would prefer to address it last so that I don't do any cross-contamination because we're talking about rescues today after all. Speaking of which, what you're looking at right now is not a rescue orchid, clearly. This is my Laelia purpurata variety striata. And just in time, she opened her blooms yesterday. Isn't she gorgeous? I have 4 blooms this year. 4 blooms! I can't believe it. We had 3 last year. So, for the first winter outside in leca and self-watering, I would say result. Now, I have tried all week to Google if I can affect the camera, the exposure, etc., etc. Do you know that I still don't have an answer? I'm getting all kinds of silly replies from Google search, so I'm not touching anything, but she's a little bit washed out, even though she is in the shade. There are striations in the sepals as well. They look white on camera, but they're not. They do have lines all through as well. Striata styli, just like what you see here. Gorgeous. She hasn't started on her fragrance yet. They are super duper fresh. Normally a rose fragrance, a classic rose fragrance. On my control device, I can see, yeah, she looks really white on the sepals, but they have pink hues. You can see she's just opened. She has as yet to stabilize her top sepal here. Anyway, gorgeousness, I thought I'd start off right about now with that. Okay, Rare Roots of Joy. Thank you so much for being here, Orchid Ninja. Sharon's son, because, yes, oh, I'm going to make you moderate Orchid or ever to my stream. I do also already go. Should be now. Your channel link. If you want to put a little description there into the chat with your link, then anybody who may grace our patio at a later stage or who is actually in bad reception. Why bad reception? My mic is cutting out. ¿Por qué? Okay, it's probably because I ventured off onto my desk to get Rare Roots of Joy into the blue, because I can't do that from my phone. I'm telling you, YouTube Live from the app is for the birds. I hope this is better, but I really want to make sure that anybody that supports me, especially as an orchid ninja, me, that I can give back in some way, shape, or form. Until, of course, we become so large that I can shower you, orchid ninjas, with all the goodies I have planned. But my hands are tied. At the moment, so tied. Okay, yes, you're in blue. Doesn't that look wonderful next to your ninja icon? You match. There's method to my madness here. Good morning, Debbie. It's good to see you. Welcome to the patio in gorgeous southern Spain, where we have a light breeze going. Okay, right. So, I am once again hooked up to my fancy handbag extension cord. Okay, so what I would like to do today, look, I just provide the subject, and we can deviate as and when, whenever, whatever. This is interactive after all. This is the reason I do this, is because I want to talk to you, and I would like you to talk right back to me. And maybe one day have the courage to say, give me a link, please. Let's talk, and we can talk one-on-one. Anywho, these are my rescue orchids, and my plan today was to go and show every one of them to you, what went wrong, how I'm trying to correct it, how I failed corrected, where I have been able to analyze as to the why I failed to correct it as well. And if I haven't figured it out, trust me, the frustration is real, because I'm like thinking, why isn't this working? Everything else makes logical sense. Why didn't this work? So that was the plan for today. We have a Zalimnia, we have a Cattleya, we have a Dendrobium, we have a Brassavola hybrid, my favorite nemesis when it comes to hybrids in leca and self-watering. Anyway, we have a Rapiculus Laelia primary hybrid. I am so sad. We have a Vanda falcata. I mean, across the board. So, but I do have one that I would like to now. Dawn Marie, hey! Jumping up and down, waving. Thank you for coming to the patio. So, we are going to start with, I have two Fusarium candidates actually, because I'm itching to get at that one. I'll show you why. If you don't mind, I'm going to remove these guys and bring you my Cattleya Golden Cell, because Linda is here. It is Saturday morning after all. Maybe nobody has time for all this. So let's start at least with one that has been in the discussion of comments, and then see if there are any direct questions, because this is not about me and what I am planning. This is about you and what you need. One moment, please. Where is my little pedestal? I need to raise it up so I don't keep jiggling you guys up and down, up and down. I thought this was a great topic for a stream, because these kinds of videos with so many rescues as I have them, they could get a little long. So I would also like to know, for anybody that is in the chat for next week's Saturday stream, Lord willing, would you prefer to have a chat about seedlings, or do you want me to do a patio tour, like a June patio tour? I know that we don't have that many people here. I will also put out a little poll on the community tab, but just a question to see what people would be more interested in, because I'm not going to show all the seedlings that I consider rescues. I would then separate them out in a different section. All righty. Dawn Marie, you know what? I'm excited that you're here too. I love seeing when people come in that I haven't seen before on a live stream. These are not this is not a format that seems to be so popular with the orchid growing community. Personally, I don't understand why. And I'm kind of stuck in the middle here in Europe because of the time zones. I just really, really want people, I want the one-on-one, the chat, the interaction, because I can put out videos and this, that, and the other, and then I wait for feedback in the comments. But I love the chit chat, the back and forth. When the stream is done, when it's processing, I check the chat as well to see if I've missed any comments. I just love this format so much. And well, that's why. Seeing a new name, I love it. I love it. And the verdant turf is all in the house. Verdant Turf is already an OG. I don't need to tell him what to do. Please don't forget Orchid Fortress. And thank you so much for sharing my channel on your FB page. Thank you. I think it did up me into the 70s. I woke up and I was in the 70s and I was like, oh, and then I saw your comment and I got goosebumps. So thank you so much. Much appreciated. Alrighty, now, this is Cattleya Golden Cellar. As I mentioned to Linda, an orchid that is healthy, like that one there, okay? Healthy, healthy. We can grow an orchid for many years without any issues at all. We don't know, what we assume is she's healthy, but what we don't know is that she's possibly got fusarium in her. And if my golden cello blows out of the pot, please, it's fine. What we don't know is that many orchids that we get and we assume are healthy because they're showing all the signs of a healthy orchid is that they possibly have fusarium in them, but the orchid is strong enough, the care is well dealt with all the nutrients, watering. Their temperatures are great. There is no stress-inducing factor to the orchid, so she doesn't display any signs of fusarium until one day, maybe 3-4 years after receiving the orchid. This is worst case scenario. You have to repot. Something happens with your environment, your climatic conditions. Anything that even triggers a form of stress to the orchid that has fusarium sleeping in her could potentially awaken the fusarium, and all of a sudden your orchid starts to collapse. This is exactly what is going on with my golden celle. She is not from the order where I had a confirmed candidate of fusarium. That is a completely separate order. And she was growing so well, bloomed for me regularly, all the bells and whistles. Then I repotted her. And then, of course, you get the repot stress and you see pseudobulbs declining. The roots are still growing well because there is enough energy in her. Eventually, and by me, with my eventually, it happened on an Orchid Chores diary video where I thought, the back structures are a little bit soggy for my liking. One thing is to have dead pseudobulbs, but they're firm, dried up, they're dead, but they're still on the orchid. Another thing is, your rhizome at the back where the pseudobulbs have dried up are soggy. That is no bueno. So when I cut into that rhizome, there was no doubt about it. The back end had a beautiful purple hue, similar to what you see here. Now I keep panning back because this is never a good topic. These rescue videos, ugh. So I prefer the stream. I'm loving this format. Anyway, so what happens with weak orchids is not just the fusarium get triggered, but many times the pests also go, hey, we got ourselves a buffet here. Weak orchid cannot resist, or let's say cannot fight back any pests. And this is why you see right here all that beautiful scale down there. It took me quite the effort to not go at it with garlic alcohol, because I thought I'm going to show this on the live stream, because this is classic what happens with all orchids that are weak. Usually the next thing that you will see is the pests that never actually frequented said orchid suddenly appear in droves, and there is nothing that you think you've done wrong. The next thing, of course, is that the orchid starts to stall on the root growth. Any roots that are growing, want to grow, seem to be growing well. They may not get more than an inch, and all of a sudden the root tips go black. So, ¿qué pasa? It could be the pH was too low. It could be there is root tip burn because of salt buildup in the media, which usually doesn't happen because if an orchid is suddenly triggering fusarium, the media is fresh because it happens after a repot. Unfortunately, another rhizome cut may be necessary to check and see if your orchid has fusarium. And you may not even get as clear a signal as I did with this one, and then you're left in doubt. Then the question arises, do you want to risk it? Do you want to save it? We'll get to that. You can clearly see I'm trying to save it. So, yes, I see you're saying calcium deficiency, but if there are no roots in the pot, there is no nutrient uptake. What you can do in a case like this is take the orchid out of the pot and do foliar feeding by dunking the orchid upside down in calcium, magnesium, and seaweed at night, because it's a cattleya. Thick cuticles open their stomata at night. Take her out in the morning and leave her to dry on a shelf. I haven't done that because my winters, my orchids are super crowded. Trust me, she got enough light for her conditions, because any stressed orchid, any recent repot, also, you reduce the care by 50% or 30%, depending on the strength or how tough the repot was, just so that the orchid can recover. But there is no point putting any kind of, let's say, nutrients in here, because clearly, as you can see, before my orchid, after her repot, started to show all this nonsense here going on, all the roots that were trying to grow going black, I was fertilizing her. But they're dead. Otherwise, I would not have that salt buildup. This is also part and parcel of knowing orchid. Now, it's a bit more difficult when your orchid is brand new in your collection, because how do you know your orchid if you've only just received her and you have no idea how she was dealt with, cared for? So these things will only develop and you get an idea if your orchid's been in your collection for a long time. But if you have any suspicions and if you don't want to risk anything, then unfortunately I can replace a golden seller. Not that I would, but could. But the question then is personal. Do you want to give it a go? Sorry for that. Sorry. Yikes. Do you want to give it a go? It's also one way of learning about orchids, watching fusarium in real time happening in your collection. Could take it as a learning curve. It's a personal decision. But let me just say, I am close to tossing this orchid. The only reason I haven't yet is because there's plenty of room in the grow space. And the only reason I didn't during the winter is because the roots were still showing a sign of absorbing something. But now, no hay nada, absolutely nada. And look at all that down there. Can't tell you how happy I am that we are finally getting to at least try to eradicate the pests. So this is the problem. Now, you could also take her out, put her in a humidity dome, etc., and see if she's got enough sustenance left in her to grow back. But you know what? I have such difficulty during the winter months. If it wasn't the growing season, sorry about that. I'm telling you, I've got a dome over me saying she's filming, let's go. Anyway, if it wasn't for the summer months, I would toss her. Now I just want to see, because I've got space in there, I just want to see if there's anything that's going to happen. If I was on a video, I would cut into the rhizome, see if anything has sort of gone brown instead of purple, which is also a signal that it worked. Whatever preventative treatment I have, which is Physan 20 is my go-to. But that is the story of my golden seller. So let me just have a look at the comments and see if there's anything that I've said have not addressed. I appreciate that. Hand hearts. Verdant turf. Hand hearts. Is still around. Maybe we can always get that. Alrighty. There we go. We got our nice. And now the topic on fusarium. I think one of my dendrobiums has recently and you chopped into many parts. It was infected. You chopped into many parts is indeed infected with Fusarium. Post a picture, the verdant turf, on your community post so that more eyes can have a look and see what you found in the rhizome. All right? The Fusarium will only be in the rhizome, not in structures. So if you still have those parts, or if you have any footage of it, post that on your community post. That's right. That's what I just addressed. How can you know the orchid when you've only just received? It's just a question in that sense of understanding how Fusarium operates, signs and symptoms. And many people that have the space, they can isolate their orchids, the newcomers. They don't have to incorporate them directly on the shelf that includes other orchids. Not sharing water for the first 6 months, if possible longer. And then watch and observe how she responds, and not repot at a time that is not ideal, so active root growth, etc., and then see how she responds. Another way is also, just because there's, sorry, just because there's also small seedling bulbs in the back, even though they're small and you want to fit her into another pot, I would never cut off old structures, because we can always observe whether the old structures are being absorbed because there's a lack of active, good, strong root system after our repot. The energy can be absorbed, or if there is such a rapid decline that isn't normal, then the back pseudobulbs will also tell a story, because normally Fusarium is always on the oldest part of the orchid, usually in the back. So in the attempt of saving her, you're always going one structure in. If you still see purple, you sterilize your tools and then cut the next one. If you're still seeing remnants of purple, repeat, sterilize, cut into the next one. But you know, there's only so many cuts you can make. Ideally, you would want to have at least 3 structures that she can work with. So, you know, and then you can soak her in a fungicide and that piece, and then hope that she recovers and bounces back. So that's the way when you get new orchids, is to see, you see, a new orchid, for example, if it's not stressed out and it has Fusarium in it, it won't display the symptoms, just like with mine. The first repot with my golden cellar, it wasn't a big deal because I was still heating my grow space during the winters at the time, and I was still providing adequate light. So the additional stress factors, because the conditions hadn't changed, didn't affect the repot at all. It was the repot after that, including cold temperatures and not enough light for this orchid, that, you know, was like a hat trick of issues that weakened the orchid that would otherwise be okay coming through a winter with, let's say, stressful conditions. But if you've got certain things that compound themselves and an orchid has dormant Fusarium in it, it's going to raise its ugly head. I don't know if that was word salad or if that was helpful. Oh, we are having a video from Rare Roots of Joy. Fantastic. Looking forward to that. Cookies and milk and snuggles with Happy. That would be great. Cookies and milk sounds nice. All right. You just checked something out. Okay, good. Remember, verdant turf, you have a community post, use it. Now, because I've been dealing with this, we're going to go to our next little rescue candidate, and that is my tiny little piece of Schilleriana. So, that will be Bluetooth interference coming from other devices that are either driving by, stopping by, or whatever. It's something that I deal with when I record. So normally I film on airplane mode to avoid any Bluetooth interference. But if I go on airplane mode with you guys now, we won't have a live stream. So any further crackling, unless I'm moving away, is because of Bluetooth interference, which I hope won't happen. You didn't see any purple? That is great. That is excellent news. Alrighty, phew. Okay, then we're going to troubleshoot what else could be the issue there. Alrighty, remember that, I think you told me about root tips drying or going black. Make sure your pH is on point, that it's not too acidic. That is my first thing in my head, and I'm now trying to go into the memory bank, which has as many holes as a strainer to try and see your comment again. But anyway, Linda, we can troubleshoot further. There is a thin layer of black on the outside. That could be old sheath, maybe. You know, when the bract, when it grows, it blackens. That could be old sheath if it feels a little bit, let's say, soft. Then maybe it is a rhizome, form of rhizome rot. But I would check and see how about your pH and your humidity levels. Hey Denise, welcome to the patio. Alrighty, another orchid that was growing pretty well for me until the conditions changed and stress induced is a Cattleya schilleriana, which was also a discovery of Fusarium in an Orchid Chores diary. I wasn't very lucky with those videos. But anyway, so this one is the tiny small piece that was like the second of when I got her as a seedling that, you know, sometimes you get two in a pot. And that is this one right here. And she was growing active root tips at the time. And the fact that she's in the same pot as the bigger Schilleriana piece that had clear Fusarium, I'm not holding out much hope for her, but this is what she is still doing. You can see that I'm getting blackening on the root tips, and I still don't have any signs of new growths. What she should be doing now is actually starting on new roots before she starts a new growth, and there's nothing going on. Now, she is in a very harsh, wet, dry cycle, even though I have her in a little orchid top, but that's because if she were to actively grow, my low humidity, I just, buffer that a little bit with water at the base. But all I've been doing since the temperatures have warmed up, I did not mist her during the winter at all. All I've been doing is mist the roots every once in a while. She gets a little hit of TNC microhydro just because of all the beneficials. Don't know, it's all a test and experiment. What you see as white here is not scale, and that is dust and remnants of bird poop, my natural fertilizer from all the wild birds that come in. At least there's a bit of absorption of water. But yeah, look at that. Yeah. Nothing to write home about at the moment. You might have let the fertilizer hit the root tips too much. It's possible. It's absolutely possible. That will burn root tips, especially if the humidity is not high enough before the water evaporates and leaves some little salts behind. But if you, after this or throughout this, whatever, think of more, we can always expand on that thread. Alrighty, I'm going to go and get another one. And I'm going to get the sad ones out of the way very quickly because molto sad is my Vanda falcata kibana. Last ditch attempt. I cannot believe it. And this is where, yes, why don't you do it with sphagnum moss? And I'm like, no, I cannot. I cannot afford sphagnum moss here on the coast. And if I were to use sphagnum moss like I did with my Vanda falcata, the OG. Oh, I gotta wash my hands. Hang on a second. If I were to use sphagnum moss, I would have to water it so heavily all the time, that within a very short period of time, especially during active growth when you're fertilizing, sorry, I'm just gonna hold on. I have algae buildup, which is absolutely crazy. Now, I can look past the aesthetics. At the beginning, I thought, nah, the aesthetics of algae, I don't like it. But I started to learn it's not about aesthetics all the time while we strive for it. It's what's best for the orchid, and that is why my mounts look a little bit funky, because I refuse to fuss with the roots, get them off my inorganic structures. Anyway, so I could have looked past the algae, but with all the pHing, the different acidity, how quickly the sphagnum moss degraded because of the amount of water I had to throw at it, I tried to do these in semi-hydroponics. Well, it didn't work out for me. I know it can be done because my Vanderfalcata, the classic one, is growing like a weed. So I still have active root tips here. Yes, they hydrate, but she is a goner. Even though a leaf is trying to grow, there is some issue. There is stem rot, something along those lines. Even the roots that I had, the tips when I was repotting her, they have stopped growing. And I'm going to call it, I'm going to ditch this one because, quite frankly, I would have to check my description, but I think one of the questions I put into the description of the stream was, when is enough enough? I have been dealing with these specialty falcatas, as I call them, for the last 2 years. And I've left them in the pots. I've changed things twice, I believe, maybe 3 times in 2 years, because I don't like to fiddle around too much. I'm done. And that is me saying, I'm done. I don't want to limp something through that is such a slow grower. These are my criteria. How long have you tried? Why did you fail? For me, I failed because I don't have the conditions. I refuse to grow in sphagnum moss. And the other reason is this is an exceptionally slow grower. Yes, I got her to bloom the first year she was with me. Memories, but to be such a slow grower, I have no time in the 7-8 months where the temperatures are ideal for a slow grower to recover. It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to call it, and I'm going to say goodbye to Kibana and recycle my pot, my tag, and my media. It is very, very sad. I thought this would work. The minute she started to abort her root tips because of touch, I'm like, yeah, no, we're done. So here's one that is super sad, not going to leave the patio just yet. This one came from Michael McCarthy and Larry Jones as a replacement for my Laelia Millery that was looking a shambles. Absolute shambles when I got her, and there was no way it appeared that I could bring that orchid through. Turns out Millery is growing well, slowly, but really well. This would be the replacement because at least I would have a Millery on the patio. She was a great quality orchid, and this is what annoys me to no end. I didn't have a weak orchid to work with. And I put her into the Rapiculus Laelia setup like I have all of them. She came with the same quality as the honey that I got from Anonymous. Honey is taking off like a weed. We don't have blooms. It's exactly the same setup. And look what I've done. I can't figure this one out. There's 30% in my mind says it's about the roots. The roots were wetter than they should be, or not wet enough when she was actively growing. The reason I'm not getting rid of her is because maybe you can see the little green coming right here. Oh, this is a long shot. I mean, a long shot. And the only reason I'm going to invest even more time in this is because she's a gift and she has Rapiculus Laelia all around her. So there was a third one that is already gone. I had 3 and it's already gone. So these 2, you see there's a little bit of green in there. I'm hoping you can see that could be a root tip. And that is why I'm not getting rid of her. But if we don't see her again, you know why. Very, very upsetting. And once again, my diagnosis is it's about the roots with this one. Because to me, nothing else makes sense. I either kept it too wet when the roots were actively growing, which works for my other ones, or too dry. I don't know. That's the only thing where I can say I've got a diagnosis. But let's see. Now, she shouldn't be outside in the breeze at all because molto stressful. But anyway, I don't want to go away and crackle again. I'm going to bring you a warm to hot growing dendrobium and just check the chat. Hey, Tina. Hello from Florida. Welcome to southern Spain for the morning. I appreciate that you're here. Thank you so, so much. Okay, now there was a question. Let me just check. Okay, rare roots of joy. You should see my phylogeny that's in my tree next to the bird feeders. Yes, I just leave it. I don't know which is worse, having them on my orchids. Oh, you know what's worse? Is when they use my spikes as a perch. That's war. And then they ruin them. Anyway, Tina has keikis. Let me just double check. Woo! Have we had a lot of conversation? I'm sorry, Tina, if I've missed everything. When I try to talk through something, I stay away from chat because squirrel. Okay, the verdant turf, a question. Another foolproof way of knowing if there's indeed fusarium on the orchid without chopping rhizomes are no good roots. Yes. Or what other foolproof signs are there? Declining pseudobulbs at a rapid rate, which is not the case with this dendrobium, okay? But it would happen very, very quickly. That the little back pseudobulbs would just go bloom, and not only just bloom one, it'll be two, three, and then everything else starts to shrivel. And it's not like, oh, it's an old growth, it's fine. No, speed at which a back structure declines, the color of the roots at the surface, even the roots that once were viable, that it's not normal at all. If you know your parts per million and you know that you haven't done too much and you know that your pH is okay, to see blackening roots like this is definitely a problem, because all the shriveling that happens very, very quickly is not age related. It is the orchid trying to pull all the energy into the front to get the growing point active and bring all its resources to the front to make it survive, well, hopefully to survive. And that's why it starts to absorb, but very quickly. Not the case again with this dendrobium. She doesn't have fusarium to my knowledge. There's other issues which I will get into, so I hope that was helpful. Foolproof? Nothing. An exterior analysis diagnosis is not foolproof unless you see it in the rhizome. That is foolproof. So just looking at it and seeing all these symptoms, they are an accumulation of what could be possible, but they are not foolproof unless you cut into the rhizome, okay? So Tina says, I don't think it's a keiki, it's a spike growing just like my other phal, it's just much smaller and shorter. Light, or it's just starting to grow and you need to wait a little bit for it to grow longer. Usually if you give a Phalaenopsis a lot of light, I'm not talking direct sun, but a lot of light, sometimes the spikes don't need to grow so much. Let me just put the transmitter into the shade while I discuss this. Whoop! I need my little extension cord. Ven aquí. Okay. Are you in the shade? It's okay, King. Right. That. Woo! You don't see anything. Sorry. But I want to discuss this. This is not about me, and I'm trying to cover. Again, interactive. Hang on a second. Let me just get you guys out of the Tupperware and out of the sun. Alrighty. So, a Phalaenopsis, for example, if it gets a lot of light, not direct sun, bright shade is good enough, it doesn't have a reason sometimes to push a long spike because the spike doesn't need to reach for the light. So it conserves the energy and may not grow as long. It's also type dependent. Some Phalaenopsis have shorter spikes as opposed to others that will just grow enormously long spikes before, they even show any signs of budding up. Sometimes it could also be a fertilizer deficiency, but usually depends how long you've had your orchid. If you have a fertilizer deficiency, you would see that in the leaves, but that all depends. Could also be that the root system isn't exactly up and running and functioning properly. For that reason, it's pushing a spike just because it needs to bloom. Its DNA says, I need to survive. Could be stress symptom. You bring them in at night. You bring them in at night. Let me know, Tina, your temperatures, please. I wouldn't know why in Florida you would need to bring them in at night, but if that makes you feel more comfortable, then, because what you're doing is, I'm guessing that you have AC in your home and you're bringing them into the cool, which means that they're coming out of warm temperatures, they're coming back into the cool, which also tells them to slow down. So it's warm, cool, warm, cool. If it was continuously warm, the orchid wouldn't think to slow down. If it gets a little bit of coolness, it thinks, okay, what's going on? So it could slow down the development of your spike simply because you're bringing it in at night. The outdoor temperatures are 73 degrees at night. If you're comfortable, there's no other reason or concerns you may have as to why you're bringing your phals in, I would leave them outside. I don't know, I don't want to push something on you that you're not comfortable with, but your temperatures are perfect for the night. And it's also very early stages for some phals to be spiking. Maybe she's new. Maybe she hasn't acclimated to your space. So I need a little bit more detail. Just a little bit more. How long have you had her? Has she bloomed for you? Did you get her in bloom? Is this her first spike maybe? All these kind of things. I know it's a lot to ask, but it's the only way I can give a proper answer to the best of my ability right out of, jump. Yo, you're very welcome. Thank you. The nighttime is the house temperature, so, if you're not worried about anything crawling around your orchids at night, and that's why you're bringing them in, you can quite comfortably leave them outside. Give it a thought. Or if you want to extend the conversation, take any video that I have posted, leave me a comment there, Tina, and we can continue this discussion in greater detail, and then I have a much, much better idea as to answering your questions more comprehensively without, giving you all these thoughts in one go, bullet points of if. So, Fran Ricks, hello. My goodness, you get a hug. Thank you. She says, Nina, I don't think you should look at it as failure on your part. It's not that you didn't give it a try. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. A little bit of encouraging there. Thank you. Yeah, because I feel bad. If I can't really nail the reason, how am I going to make it right? By the way, speaking of my Vanda Falcata Kibana that is no more, as per executive patio decision, my, whatchamacallit, Kamanu, Gojo Fukurin still is. It's growing another root. Same setup. So, these little speciality Vandas, there's a reason. She's also a very slow grower, but she's growing roots, and her one root in the pot is absorbing, and she's growing a new leaf. So there's that. Anyway, this is my Dendrobium Lori Mortimer. Was supposed to be, I bought her as Dendrobium Samurai. Yeah, sorry, Samurai, not Samurai. I can't be an Orchid Ninja channel without, having a samurai in my collection. But anyway, she was mislabeled, and thanks to Michael McCarthy, she came out as Lori Mortimer. I would have been completely lost because when she bloomed for the first time, I was like, this is not a samurai. Anyway, so she's not exactly, let's say, an orchid that I would be too sad about losing. If I could switch with the orchid gods, I would say, please, I want my Longip with Millery to stay, and you can have this one. I want the other one to stay. But anyway, she's here, and with that, there is a responsibility to do the best for her. And even though it would appear that I haven't done diddly squat when it comes to doing the best for her, honestly, I tried. This is a warm to hot grower, okay? She's like an antenatum, antelope type, but she's a hybrid. And during the winter months, I'm really struggling to keep her happy, not just because of temperatures, but because of thrips. For whatever reason, this orchid and thrips. Hang on a second, sorry. I don't dare touch anything. I hope you don't get bothered by the scooter too much. Sorry about that. We may move into the shade, but the shade may be too dark. The app drops how the camera responds. The YouTube live app drops how the camera responds. And everything gets dark, and I was trying to figure that out. Why is this looking so dark? It shouldn't be, but anyway. Because I film in the shade on the east table for videos, and it's fine. I don't change the exposure at all. So, but you can see all the thrips here. This is very typical of this orchid. She is thrips free now, but boy, do I have to watch her during the winter. Now, she's making some strides. She's looking much better with this growth, still an active growth, but you can see there are traces of damage. We're about to get the welcoming committee. My daughter is coming home to go for a swim. But Baloo hasn't caught on to that, and King knows not to bark. Anyway, King barks at Baloo to stop Baloo from barking. He does the herding thing and makes sure Baloo stays within his perimeter, you know, and doesn't run out of the terrace and start barking on the patio. So I've got two dogs barking, but one is trying to stop the other one from doing it. Bananas. Anyway, back to Dendrobium and thrips. So, you see that? Anyway, last year or 2 years ago, I put her into just lava rock in the semi-hydroponic setup, or self-watering setup, but because of the evaporative cooling, she absolutely hated the leca, which is typical. So I put her into lava rock, and it would appear that she is trying to fight back. I've got a new growth. I also have a broken pot. So in a future video, what I'm going to do, and I've completely forgotten who gave me this tip, but I thought it was genius. And I hope that whoever it was will forgive me that I don't have the comment. I can't even search it because I don't remember the name. Don't even know which video it was under. But see, she suggested to use onion netting bags to pot up orchids in lava rock so that when it comes to repotting, loose lava rock just doesn't fall and crack other roots. I'm telling you, if my desk had a seat where I could lean back, I would have been leaning back, mind blown. Genius. So that is what I'm going to do with her in a future repot, because clearly this growth is right up against the edge, broken pot. Whether I like this orchid that much or not, they deserve better. So that's what I'm going to do with her. Oh, you're very welcome. Yes, I'm going to look out for your name, Tina. Please take me up on that. Good night. Good night, Julie. Sweet dreams. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. The Verdant Turf, did you link your channel and Orchid Fortress? If not, please do not forget. All right, before you go to sleep. The Verdant Turf is an orchid channel in the Philippines. Ha. Ay, to be in the Philippines. Anyway, one day, can you imagine if everything takes off with this channel and things start to turn around, if we take a field trip to the Philippines and we'll do a live stream with the Orchid Fortress and the Verdant Turf, and Ninja Orchids is in the Philippines. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna faint. Send me home with a smile. Anyway, right. So there's that. We can dream, right? So that's coming up on this channel. A hack with netting based on a viewer's suggestion, which I thought was great. Okay, very quickly, we're going to do one very quick one because mailman, also because of cold proceeded, etc. This was the last thing. To try to grow some new roots. Aki. We're going to call it, I don't need to see this even during the summer. Right, next one. But wait, unfortunately, there's more. And we are going straight into Brassavola. Brassavola. Anything Brassavola. Super interesting in a form of learning curve off the charts. So there's that. Let's look at the positive side of things. And she was the first one. This is Brassicatlia gyrakiku. Bloomed for me, did fabulously, been in my collection since 2018, came in that dubious shipment, so I thought she had fusarium. She didn't, but she had that rapid decline as well. It turns out it was a rhizome fungus. Anyway, chopped her into 3 pieces because I was checking for fusarium, seeing as she came from a shipment with confirmed fusarium in the box. Now, no fusarium, rhizome fungi, Brassavola. That is a recipe. Oh, plus semi-hydroponics and leca. That is a recipe for disaster if you do not keep the roots at temperature. What is 20 degrees Celsius? Is that 64 or 68 degrees Fahrenheit? Brassavolas are warm to hot growers. They are notorious for loving their wet-dry cycle. I am a firm believer that any Phalaenopsis can be made to be adapted into leca and self-watering, evaporative cooling or not. It's just a question of getting the ratio right. But the biggest factor that cannot be interfered with is not the media having evaporative cooling, but the temperature. Brassavola roots do not like to be wet if the temperatures drop below their normal preference, which I always like to make a safe margin is 20 degrees Celsius. My collection tolerates lower temperatures, but seeing as this is an orchid care video, I prefer you not to expose your orchids to what I'm exposing mine, because then you won't expose yourself to the anxiety that comes with exposing orchids to cold temperature that they normally would hate. So, evaporative cooling, leca, circumstances change, rhizome rot. This has been now in just lava rock, teetering on the edge of what is this. But she's trying a new growth, and I'm going to keep on trying because I want to observe what she does, how long it takes for her to either completely collapse or rebound. This is one of the cuttings that came off of her when I was chopping up the rhizome to get, well, a diagnosis of fusarium or not. And this is the better of the 2 cuttings. We've got a nice little new growth, and it is just lava rock in semi-hydroponics. Here's the drainage margin. Flush a lot of water through her. Pretty straightforward. I am positively surprised how well this is doing because we have another cutting. Oh gosh, please don't blow over. Let me do it this way. We have another cutting, which was actually the bigger of the 2. And mira, disaster. I think this one's a goner because even the new growth, whoop, didn't make it. The new growth is crispy. So this one's gonna go. I shall recycle my media because I'm done. This has been a project of 2 years now, if not 3. She was my, sorry for the jiggle, she was my first orchid in leca and self-watering that I recognized how temperature affects health of roots on some but not others. Now, I'm going to put you back into the shade for some blooms. Now, here's the thing. All my brassavolas, what was that, brassavolas? All my brassavolas that are in a wet-dry cycle on a mount, or I have one in sponge rock, just plain sponge rock. They're doing great. Even though my temperatures drop below their ideal, let's say, preference. But that is because the roots are then kept drier and they have a lot of air around them. And I always like to advocate for the fact that we always say the roots like oxygen and then there's air, etc. Yeah, but oxygen is also a part of water. So if we want to provide oxygen to our orchid roots, we can do so by way of water. However, it would appear that temperature is one of the biggest and main factors to keep Phalaenopsis and roots from rotting if you are going to have them in a semi-hydroponic setup. And Brassavola orchids, if it is a hybrid, if a Brassavola is the parent, it is a strong hybrid, okay? So if you have a BLC or a BC or anything Brassavola, you know that either you are not going to get a very vigorous root grower, or you've got to make sure that if your temperatures dip below their preferred minimum, that you keep the roots dry, and you will be fine even at lower temperatures. Wouldn't that be awesome, verdant turf? Oh, thank you very much for linking that. I appreciate that. Orchid Fortress is also in the Philippines. All right, so that's my once upon a time, 3 Brassavolas. Do you want to go with the Zillemnia? I think we'll do 2 more. We're pretty good in time, aren't we? Let me check. Oh, we're coming up to an hour. Okay, moving along swiftly then. Let me put you back. A ver. I'm going to put you back here. Choop. And I will get I did say I wasn't going to do seedlings today. I need to show you this before. She is a rescue as well, but speaking of, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I need to show you my Cattleya Rex seedling from said dubious shipment. Let me get all these out of the way. Because this one also, I bit off a little bit more than I could chew when it came to the layman, wet dry cycle, blah blah blah. And Cattleya Rex, I didn't get the ratio right. Now, so far as I can tell, the decline of the back pseudobulbs is not Fusarium related, because the roots in this setup, which I switched last year just to lava rock and semi-hydroponics in order to get the roots to be drier throughout the winter, the roots are still alive, even the ones that were alive in Leca. And now she's growing a new growth. Now, I've had this orchid since 2018, so you can tell how stubborn I was. Like a self-watering. It works, I know, it can be done. Rah, 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 rah. Well, there comes a time, again, if things aren't warm enough for some orchids, you got to make a change until things are warm enough again during the winter months, and then we can go back to leca and self-watering. But if we want the orchid to be around for when that happens, we better switch up the system a little bit and make sure that the orchid comes through okay, so that she will still be there for when we make the switch. So I'm excited to see this. I'm also excited to tell you that not a single bit of scale has been on this orchid for the longest time. You can see scale damage from when she was super stressed and almost left the collection. You can also see some deficiency signs here, but that's normal if you don't have a root system that's really strong. How is it supposed to absorb the nutrients, especially supplements, especially during winter, etc.? But let's hope with another 2 roots, that's all I'm looking for, not being greedy with this one, and that we can get some nutrients into her. I'm really pleased, though, that she came through like a champ. Great news. So this is the exception, but seeing as we were discussing dead pseudobulbs in the back, you can see that the other structures have not declined, not compared to my dendrobium that I just showed you, if that one were to have had fusarium. So allow me just to put her back into the shade, because they are used to the cozy indoors, not any breezy patios. Okay, Zillemnia Midas. She was fantastic. Big, vigorous, was in as big a basket as my Lucneri was, or is. Lucneri is still here. Same basket, lava rock only, very airy. Grew fantastically, and then, poof, nada. Very, very typical of what my Tolumnias have to deal with during the winter. Zillemnia, Tolumnia, get it, get it? Tolumnia is one of the parents that makes up the genus Zillemnia. So she declined the moment the temperatures in the winter got unagreeable. So this is what I'm trying to do here. I'm very happy to say that she's got this new growth that's made it. Trying to get a root there to grow and make sure it makes it. And you can see there is salt buildup because there are some viable roots in the pot. They're not doing their job, so we'll get rid of the lava rock right there so that that root tip doesn't burn on me. We're a long way off blooms, but she's not dead. And this seems to be working. Even though it's a semi-hydroponic setup, she was in a much, much drier situation when I started to lose her. She was about 5 times the size of this. Beautiful, beautiful, golden. That's why, Midas, Selimnia Midas. Golden, beautiful blooms. Amazing. Anyway, that's her. I know what I did wrong. I'm still trying. I can't change the conditions. Oh, Discovery here together with you. She's got a new growth coming. Whoop, whoop. All right, better leave her alone and get her put away. And then I'm just going to show you one more because I would like to do all this with the media cleanup, not in small batches, etc. I still have two of my OG Tolumnias from my OG collection right there. They're looking really shabby, but they're not dead yet. Not like this one. And this one, of course, the whole scale thing, it's been an issue. It's been a reoccurring theme. It's back. I haven't messed with this one yet, even though that new growth is there. I have tried to water it, drown it with water, and forget it. This one is gone, and this one is my pink beige, which was super vigorous. And, well, it cannot cope, even with me carrying all the Tolumnias outside and bringing them back in. And back in the day, there were 19. Now I have 4 because I want the media. I'm going to recycle it. I'm going to do a nice cleanup and a nice sorting session and be done with this as well. And that saddens me because I was really, really thinking that I could do it. I could pull these through. I could love on them and make sure that they're happy, that I could get them to bounce back. Yeah, all the lovings that I gave them were for naught. Well, we've still got 2 more, but they're not looking, you see them? They're not looking too great over there in the corner either. Hello, Headstone and Headlines. It's good to see you. Good morning. Anybody into true crime or Wordsy Wednesday, little puzzle games? Please subscribe to Headstone and Headlines. And if you're still here, because I've been babbling away, please put your link in the description. I've been watching some of your shorts. They're very well done. So that's a true crime channel, that one of the ones that I follow because it's also a genre I really enjoy. And there are some wonderful creators out there, and then there are some not so wonderful creators out there. Headstone and Headlines happens to be one of the wonderful ones. Okay, so that is me and my rescue. It's not really, we couldn't really gawk at anything, could we? Well, we gawked at crispy leaves. Had a discussion about fusarium. Needs must though. Needs must. It can't always be all green, lush and beautiful blooms. There's always something about this hobby that keeps us on our toes. If you have any more questions, I'm going to get myself a beverage and wait on that because we usually have an 11-second delay. 11 to 12 seconds. Excuse me while I darken the scene gracefully. Let me just get this and see if there are any more questions. I'm coming through. Anyway, any more questions? And if not, then I'm just going to go and start sorting, boiling it, etc. Sometimes I find myself watching those remakes of true crime stuff. Yep, absolutely. It's an unforgiving genre. Got to be very careful how you deal with such tragedies. She does it with grace and a lot of empathy, and I appreciate that. Alrighty, well, it would appear that we've got our hour. I don't mind going 2 hours, but once again, if you're watching on replay, I want to say thank you very much. I will put up a community post and ask if you want to see seedlings, talk about seedlings next week, or if we just do a patio tour. I'm going to check with the neighbors though, unless they're throwing a party. Make sure, excuse me, have you got a live band again on Saturday next week? Because, you know, I couldn't even go to the west side back then. But there's some things I would like to show you. Chalpraia is in bloom, etc. You know, just things like that. And of course, by next week, my Lucnery first spike. Yes, I've got 2. First spike will be in bloom. So anyway, And I want to show you my Dendrobium Victoria Regina, but please, oh, she deserves a video all of her own. Anyway, this was Laelia purpurata variety striata on the patio. Any of the two? Perfect, thank you very much. You're making my life a lot easier. Not. Anyway, we'll see what the seedlings do. Okay, that timing is perfect. There's something interfering here, but I want to say have a fabulous day, morning, weekend, etc. on the condition though, please, that you stay safe. Take care. Bye.